Welcome to Situational Awareness, a podcast brought to you by Militarnyi.com. I'm your host, Valentina Kuzak, and today we are at the Defense Tech Valley 2025. We'll talk to co-founder and CEO of Himera, Misha Rudominski. Misha claims that his radio is better than Motorola in some cases. So let's learn what he has to say about that. Welcome to Situational Awareness, Misha. So nice to have you here. We are at Brave Defense Tech Valley today, 2025. It's a big event. It's the biggest conference, and it's our first interview with you. So we are very happy to have you. Welcome.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
So the first question will be just for our international audience. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about your startup, about your defense tech startup, because we know that you're a serial entrepreneur, so you have lots of those companies. You can touch a little bit on them, but focus please on the defense tech startup Himera.
Do I talk to you? Do I say to camera? Where do you
Whatever
want this?
works for you. We have multiple cameras. It will be great.
Okay, every one of them. Okay, I mean, to be specifically honest, I'm 100% focused on one right now. It's Himera, where I'm co-founder and CEO, basically for the last, 3.5 years. So we've been very much focusing on providing the most secure, resilient, and scalable communication systems for the Ukrainian Defense Forces. A big focus is on kind of bridging that gap where usually in this market and generally in defense, you either have something that is capable or something that is available and affordable and can be scaled quickly. And in Ukraine, a lot of companies over the last 3.5 years have been able to build those solutions that are some of the best on the market, but also can be deployed in much bigger quantities than anything that was ever produced before. We pretty much did the same. We've done the product that works in some of the a line of products actually in the communications where soldiers talk to soldiers, sensors talk to sensors, soldiers to sensors to robots and so on.
Yeah, so not just the walkie-talkies, but like communication systems.
Yeah, the whole secure, resilient communication network for the battlefield, for the modern battlefield. And we bridge that gap where on one side it is used in many of the Ukrainian offensive and defensive operations in some of the harshest environments, both kind of electronic warfare, electronic reconnaissance environments, but also just physical, environmental environments. Some of the harshest ones are right now in Ukraine, but also something that is also very scalable and much more affordable that can close a much bigger need and provide a much bigger capability to the users.
You are quite public about your products and about the company, and you've mentioned in multiple interviews they are in Ukrainian, so probably not accessible fully for our international audience. But what the specifics and how the Himera products stand out among others?
So we base our differentiator on 4 specific pillars, where some of the other companies are doing one of them or 2 of them, some are trying 3, but only trying. We were able to complete all 4. Those 4 pillars are relevant functionality. So we do work in some of the harshest environments. We're very hard to detect. Our products are hard to detect, hard to jam, hard to intercept, and they're very relevant for the modern battlefield in actually many different ways. Like, just talking about different features and functionalities and tactics that we have in our product, that's, it might be a separate question if you want. But in generally, it is a relevant product that can be used by some of the most advanced units on the battlefield. And then the second one would be the scalability. We use only commercial shelf components in the products that we do, meaning that we can manufacture much quickly, we can build the supply chain much quickly, we can, if customer comes, we can deliver the products much quicker in much bigger numbers, actually fulfilling a much bigger needs on the battlefield, something that a lot of the competitive products cannot do because they have a lot of bespoke components inside, which makes them very hard to produce, meaning hard to scale if a bigger contract comes. Third one is the affordability, and I don't mean here like being cheap, more that current prices for a lot of our competitive products in different companies are so prohibitively expensive that most of the users in the militaries cannot actually afford them. A lot of the products from our competitors, they're made for like special operation forces and Marines, those parts of the unit that have much higher budgets and can afford those things. But then if you go and talk about ground forces, which is usually the biggest part of the military, their budgets are too low to actually procure those tactically relevant communication systems. So affordability here is not about saving somebody money or outcompeting because we're cheaper. It's more about actually providing this functionality to somebody who couldn't afford it before because they didn't have the budgets that could afford such products. And the fourth one is the user experience. Is that usually and historically in general, but but it's also very true in communications. Well, still, again, true about most military products historically. In comms, very true is that a lot of the processes in our niche are very complex. It takes like months to actually learn how to use them. So when you have career military, that kind of works, but still, you would want it to be quicker. When you have, and for example, most countries in the world, they have some reserve duty where people just don't have months to actually learn how to use the products, but they're actually the biggest part of the military when and if the war comes. So we focused a lot on making our products very easy to learn. Like you can learn everything as long as you have some experience with like signals and communications in the military. You can learn how to use our product, everything theory, practice, exercise, all the kind of tactics and procedures around it in a day. Like 2 is like stretching it with like very in-depth analysis and very deep understanding. And some of the other products on the market, they're like you need 3 months to learn how to use it. So we go through 3 months to 2 months, and this is about that adoption and integration. It allows our product to be much easier to be implemented, even by the users that have never seen it before. They take it out of the box, played with it for a couple hours, and now they generally can work as it already in the battlefield conditions. So those 4 things is kind of reliability, relevant functionality, affordability, scalability, and good user experience.
An interesting thing about scalability. So you mentioned that you are working mostly with what is available on the market and not very expensive. Does it mean that you have the low level of localization of production of the components in Ukraine and mostly bring them from China?
No, we're like more than we're around 85% European-made. That includes Ukraine and EU. Another bigger part is US, and then we have kind of components from all around the world. But we have very little dependency on China. Like we have some non-critical components that are just incredibly hard to replace, like batteries. Like batteries are literally, there's almost nowhere in the world where there's a lithium-ion battery, industry, and we do have a battery inside. So that battery might be or might not be Chinese depending on the specific contract, but it's just hard to generally find a non-Chinese battery. But we don't have anything critical that we're dependent on that is Chinese. But it's also true that Ukraine doesn't make its own chips yet, so like they're non-Chinese. So the thing is, when we talk about that level of localization, all of those Ukrainian components we're talking, they're still made on non-Ukrainian chips. Just Ukraine doesn't have. Like there are only a handful of countries in the world doing their own chips. So when we're talking about everything that could be localized or makes sense to localize for safety of the supply chain or for the pricing or for the just our being able to control the IP, we do in Ukraine. Something that is more kind of standardized, mass producible. We outsource sometimes in Ukraine, sometimes globally. But I think in general, there is no other company in the world that makes tactical radios in Ukraine. So by that point, we are already localizing. We're not even competing with anyone in Ukraine. It's nobody who is mass producing tactical radios or comms at this level anywhere in Ukraine apart from us.
Right. Can you tell us a bit more about your flagship product? Like what's the key one now?
I can show it.
Oh, really?
Yes,
wow.
Yes. It's a magic trick that...
Okay.
Yes, that's the radio. So this is our Himera G1 Pro. I can turn it on, that that it's functionable. So it's Himera G1 Pro. This is our tactical radio. It's a handheld radio that is used by Ukrainian Defense Forces. We already have customers around the globe. Last year we completed a deal for the US customer. We have a couple more that are not yet public, all around NATO and other allies. It's a handheld radio that kind of, you can split its differentiator in 2 main specific kind of categories. One is technical and more like signal level, and other is environmental and user experience. So on the user experience, we have the best battery life on the market. It's 48 hours compared to a lot of the products in this niche working for 8 to 12 hours in this niche. So
it's like
it's multiple. Yeah, it's times by that. It's one of the lightest. Some of the tactical radios in the market weigh 1.3 kilograms. This one is
it's fair.
Yeah. This one is 300 grams. It's protected from water, from dust. You can swim with it if you need. It's mechanically, like we dropped it from around 100 meters on the ground, survived well and worked well. We exploded C4 near it, and even with all the compression waves, it still survived the explosion and
and
worked
it
well
worked.
after that.
Okay.
So that's more on the kind of user experience side. And then on the technical side, it's a frequency hopping radio, meaning instead of transmitting in one frequency, it spreads itself across a much bigger range, meaning it's harder to detect, harder to jam, harder to intercept. It's fully encrypted. We also partner with our partner company, a Canadian partner company that is doing post-quantum encryption, which is also incorporated into our product, so protecting ourselves from future risks that are specifically more realistic to be first to come through defense focuses. Because when the first time the quantum computer is going to be available, they're probably going to be used in war before anywhere else in the world. What else? We do mesh networking, we do data transmission for different situational awareness systems. So this is a small computer that allows you to pass voice and data efficiently on the battlefield between soldiers and sensors and robots.
Great. And you mentioned that you differentiate yourself from other Ukrainian companies, and you're saying basically you're the only company producing that kind of product in Ukraine, right?
Yeah, we're the only company right now producing tactical radios in Ukraine and the whole tactical
Does
communication
it mean
systems.
you actively work with Ukrainian military? And can you say how actively? Can you
Yeah,
tell us
we
the
have
volumes of purchases of Ukrainian army?
Yeah, we have like dozens of brigades we're working with, and we're pretty much present in every type of land type of combat unit. We less present in like air forces and navy, just less use cases for what we do
Okay.
there. But if we're talking about the unit that is fighting on the ground in Ukraine, General Director of Intelligence, Special Operation Forces, Territorial Defense, Armed Forces, National Guard, Border Guard, artillery units, Marines, all of those. Like at some level, we're already present there. With some, we work in more in depth. With some, less in depth. But in
What in
general,
terms of quantities?
we have thousands of users in Ukrainian Defense Forces. But I cannot talk specifically about the last specific numbers. But pretty much growing every month. We're scaling the production. We're scaling the cooperation
Obviously,
with
like
government.
the export is restricted in Ukraine, but probably you do have a company registered abroad that you also supply to international audiences.
I mean, we supply internationally. We produce in Ukraine and export. We have a line of products that is commercial by nature.
Okay.
We still
So
do
it's
sell
like
it.
dual use thing?
So this one that I showed is a dual use. So on dual use is all, so like all the drones, when we say the military technology is prohibited to export, we specifically say military and dual use. The only thing that is only military is like rockets. Like drones are dual use by nature. They're not military technology. They're dual use technology, which is also you're not allowed to export it right now. So the radio that I showed you, it was the whole functionality enabled as a dual use product. But if you remove some of the features that are specifically considered dual use, you get a commercial spec product, which is still in our case used by
So
the
who are
military
your
globally.
customers? Military?
Yeah.
Military
Yeah.
mostly.
Yeah.
Okay, like anything like the firefighter is abroad or any like security
As of right
services?
now, anything that I can kind of publicly talk about are defense users.
Right. Okay. You also mentioned like the whole cycle of how you attentively using R&D. So how big is your R&D department, and how many people do you have, if you can enclose that information?
The biggest part of our team is R&D. So this is like we are an R&D company, then we manufacture and sell and do everything else. Like
Because manufacture it itself, it doesn't sound like very complicated, yeah? Since
We
it's a radio.
specifically chose fairly traditional manufacturing processes, so it allows it to be more adaptive, quicker, and if we need to scale, we don't have anything bespoke where we need like super niche specialists.
Right.
So like it was by design where we were designing the product, we knew that it needs to be manufactured at scale, so we chose specific components and manufacturing processes that allow it to do so. So yeah, in our case, manufacturing it's not that it's not complicated, it's just not. For many companies right now, manufacturing is the biggest part of their team because there's so many like physical labor and work with metals and composites and so on. We don't have that.
And so many components that you have to put together.
Yeah, in our case, the manufacturing team is it's not the biggest, not the smallest, but it's still obviously a very important part of the team. But if you look at what most of our budgets in the company they definitely go to R&D.
So what's the percentage? Can you?
I don't think I can specifically talk about the percentage, but probably more than 50% is
Okay,
R&D.
right. Okay, that's cool. Now a little bit about the business part of the thing. So you also open about that you were able actually to get the investment from foreign venture capitalists, and the last number that I've found publicly was $1.5 million US probably. Is it right as of now, or did you manage to attract any other investors? Tell us a bit more.
We already crossed that. We already crossed 2 million actually in investment, and have a couple more investors upcoming that we're in the kind of due diligence level. So yeah, we are actively raising. I think in general, often, if not currently closing, we're just happy to talk to investors who can support us. And sometimes as a company, you get like a big opportunity that you need to target quickly, and for that you need investment. So like we always keep like good and close relationship with investors. But yeah, we are more than 2 million. We have investors from all around, from the US, from EU, from Ukraine. I mean, that's it actually at this point, but
Right.
I think we
How
have.
about what would you tell to your fellow, companies also today present at the Defense Tech Valley Summit? How you can attract the attention of investments? What's the key? Is it like a product? Is it communication and pitching? Is it everything at once? But like some of the key components.
I mean, early on in like pre-seed and seed, really what investors are investing in is kind of like they say it in a founder, but what they specifically mean is they believe that you can raise the next fund, the next round, and do they believe that? So basically, often it's said like at pre-seed and seed that investors are investing in founders, right? They don't know if the business is going to work yet.
So they just liked you, and that's how you got the first money.
But what specifically, it's not just liking you, is do they believe that you know how to play the game? Do they believe that you can raise the next round? Because a very big part of the success in pre-seed and seed is it's very unlikely that if you're deep tech, if you're a technology-based company, that you will generate enough revenue by round A to actually survive. Like it's very rare because business is just not there. You might have a product market fit, but business is not there. So you will have to raise money from very traditional institutional investors. They will go through due diligence and finance and so on. So what they kind of investing in is, do they believe you can get there? And when you get there, do they believe you can raise those big money that actually will get you to revenue generating company and the survival? So when they say founder, it's not just if they like you, which is part of it, but it's also, do they believe that all the other investors are going to like you and going to invest in your company?
Okay, makes sense. I saw one of your public conversation with the investor, and like the second question he asked was probably, so what would you do with your product when the war ends? Misha, do you believe that the war will end soon, or are you expecting the World War III? What's your strategy? And are you asked this question often?
I try to talk about things that I'm knowledgeable about. So I don't know, what is going to be in 2-3 months. I don't think anyone knows. And the more confident people are in saying what is going to happen in Ukraine and between Ukraine and Russia in 3 months and 6 months in a year, I think the more confident they are, the more stupid they are usually, or at least more delusional they are. So I don't know what's going to happen. Like my job, and I'm trying to do my part. So like my goal, and in our kind of mission as a company, and our goals is like, the first goal that we have is help Ukrainian Defense Forces have the best communication systems so they can run much more efficient missions, much more successful missions, and the soldiers can live longer because they have the ability to receive and pass the information. So from our perspective, we're just preparing for that and working on that. Of course, as a business, we want to diversify because, I mean, in usual business, if you have one customer that is more than 20% of your revenue, it's considered very risky because if the customer lives, you have a huge, hole in the business. In defense, when specifically in Ukraine, like you have almost 100% of your revenue coming from one customer. Thank God you can work with military bases and military support funds, so you have a bit more.
And militaries elsewhere.
Ukrainian market by itself is a bit more diversified than like just one customer. It's one user, many customers buying for the same user. But in general, it's already not an ideal situation for a business. So of course, as a business, we try to diversify. But even like our pricing in Ukraine and globally is very different. Like we have, depending on the contract, multiple times difference in prices. And even in that, like we still will always prioritize the Ukrainian contract because that's the first goal that we put in our company. Like after that, we want to provide all of that capabilities that we built in Ukraine and for Ukraine to the international customers. But before that, it goes helping the Ukrainian Defense Forces. So. We want to diversify as a business, but we also believe that what we're working on, even in Ukraine, in case the whatever, let's say the fighting stops, the re-equipment of the specific technology that we're working on is more efficient and more likely actually in peace times than in war times. We're not we're not a kamikaze drone manufacturer. We're not a bomber drone that needs to continuously run and they explode and so on. So we are more of a supporting equipment that is making every other piece of equipment more efficient because the soldiers and the robots can coordinate better. So, and that is it is actually much harder to do when you're fighting actively, because that level of infrastructure, it's kind of the backbone. You cannot really rip it out and then put the new one. It needs to happen a bit more gradually and continually. The drone, like an FPV drone, it will explode every time it flies. So you can have another company bringing in the drones, or you can have, you need to continuously replace them. That's not what's happening in communications. That's the more kind of not unified, but more integrated and continuously operational, the better. So usually it's actually in the change of that happens in the peace times, not in the war times, because you have a bit more time and a bit more energy. So we as a company are not scared. There's no sometimes it's hard for a defense company in Ukraine to be like, from one side it's bad for business, right? The war end, but you also want it as a Ukrainian. In our case, we don't have that, so we believe that what we're doing is a continuous need that's going to be sustained on the Ukrainian market as we move forward, and we hope that throughout the next couple of years, Ukraine will replace and upgrade its communication stack on the tactical level, and we want to be the company that provides that functionality and those capabilities, those products. They're going to be replacing the current. I mean, go big or go home, right? But of course, the Ukraine's victory will allow us to also bring our products to a much bigger customer base globally.
Right. Do you already have in Ukraine non-military customers?
I mean, all of the users we have will at some point work at or near the battlefield. So that can be NGOs, that can be medical evacuation, that can be strategic infrastructure near the areas where they experience electronic warfare, electronic reconnaissance. So what is our specific differentiation is that we work where a lot of the commercial solutions don't work. It's much harder to jam our system. It's much harder to detect, much harder to intercept, meaning that we don't have a user apart from military educational facilities that can be all around Ukraine, but we don't have active users, near the border with Poland, for example. But somebody who might be not actually active military, but still
like farmer in Kherson Oblast.
Like that can happen, yeah.
Okay, that you also mentioned about a very interesting story that I've heard first when you were giving the interview to my colleague Katerina Soprun, that Ukrainian soldiers prefer your radios to the Motorola and other expensive American radios because of some of the user experience that is very important. Can you tell us a little bit more, because I overall like this story?
I mean, it really depends on niche applications. There is the market we operate in is filled with a lot of this kind of very over-engineered, complex products. I mentioned it a bit in the beginning that are hard to learn, long to learn. They're also one of the examples I can provide. A traditional way to run a tactical communications product is that you have this specific, very publicized kind of you market your own waveform that you just tell your customers, we have the best waveform, this is how it looks, it's patented, you market it that it's the hardest to detect, the hardest to jam. Thing is, when you market a waveform, it means you also tell everyone how exactly it operates, what is, basically its signature, in more traditional terms. What it means is that your enemy also knows how your radio specifically operates. And usually the more expensive the radio, the more advanced units they're going to give it to, or they're only going to give it to the commanders because it is the most expensive radio and the best one. And so what the enemy does is they target those radios because they know if somebody's using the radio on the
Somebody
tactical
very
level,
important.
it's somebody very important. So that is, for example, an issue that happens with those very advanced radios. But then on the other side, if we use a current primary radio that you use in Ukrainian military is a police radio made by Motorola. So the Motorola does make tactical radios, but the ones that are used in Ukraine specifically are commercial spec police radio. Just what was created for.
You can actually buy them everywhere.
Oh yeah, like anyone, like it's not limited for anything. It's like it is specifically. It's a DMR standard digital mobile radio. There are multiple manufacturers doing the same radios, basically the same standard as like it's Wi-Fi, and you have many companies doing different Wi-Fi routers. Right. They work together. The same way DMR standard, you have many companies doing radios on the same standard. They can work together, so it's not differentiated in that way. And what happens is that obviously when you have a police radio, it's just made for different environment. It's not a bad radio. It's just not created to be used on the battlefield. It's created to be used in the civil environment, which means it doesn't need to be not detected, right? It's okay for it to be detected. I mean, it might have, because it's civilian radio, it might have a backdoor because the security agencies of the country would like to have the ability to eavesdrop sometimes, right? It might not have such a long battery life, for example, because it's, you use it in the military, you can have days where you don't really have the ability to have stationary position. If you're in a police or a security company, you start a day in the morning, you finish the day in the evening. So there are a lot of this kind of smaller features that it doesn't make it bad, it's just not what it's made for, right? It's like trying, I don't know, to fly across the Atlantic on a bicycle, or, it's like, it's both of them are transport, but it's just not
but
made for that.
Yeah, military strategy and tactics, it's all about using the right thing in the right time.
Yes. And so what we worked in Himera is how do we create a product that is it's commercial in a way how easy it is to use, how adopted it is to the needs of the users, but also functions very much like a proper tactical radio. And so I think a good thing about what we've done is that our radio is priced in a way, but it's also easy enough where everyone uses it. So even though it's an advanced waveform where it works in very harsh environments, even if it gets detected, you don't really know who is holding it. It's not going to be only commander. It's going to be the most advanced units in the military, but also the more general kind of territorial defense forces, where now everyone is using it, so nobody is different. So nobody is, you cannot build intelligence based on that information. So there are all these kind of small things, I think specifically the biggest differentiator is that it's very rare for our military, for example, to use their kind of commercial spec radios when they do kind of those offensive operations, go in the gray zone, in the kill zone, where the danger is much higher, because that's where you can get targeted by electronic reconnaissance systems. And then if you're deemed important enough target, FPVs are going to come, artillery is going to come, mortars is going to come, everything is going to get shelled.
How detectable your radios
much
are?
harder. Like in the military, there's nothing that is impossible.
Yeah.
There's no.
But the issue of price, right?
No, like you can detect anything. As long as something is emitting a signal, you can detect it. It's just how much energy and effort you need to put on it. We believe that we made a product that is hard enough to intercept and hard enough to detect that at most actually will not do it. Because we operate where we hide a bit with the background radiation, background noise on the battlefield. We also often look like a kind of commercial spec modulation, so somebody who detectors can see that, can think that it's not something specifically important. So it's a lot of the kind of small things that we focus on, but we often hear the feedback, and we have a lot of the kind of certificates and like tests we've done that are official, where we those reports say that we work when nothing else worked, our products work when nothing else worked, and then we have a test where we showed that specific targeted jamming systems and detection systems had a much harder time finding us and trying to jam us than a lot of the existing solutions. It's still always kind of game, are we the hardest radio on the market to jam? No, I know radios which are harder to jam than us.
Which ones?
Oh, that's somebody on my team talking to me. What do you want me to ask Anna?
Is she going to a party today?
Anna, are you going to a party today?
Yeah, I am going.
Which one of them?
Not sure which one. There are so many. I'll need to pick one.
So maybe we'll meet each other at the party.
Yeah, Vada here is saying that maybe we meet each other at one of those parties.
That's for sure.
And then also radios that are other radios that are harder to find than us, for example, to detect in us. That is debatable. We believe and we focus a lot on being the hardest to detect actually on the market. But this is always a game of kind of a competition, and it's not always only about the technical features per se, but how it actually shows itself on the battlefield. And we have growing kind of list of reports and feedbacks where the customers who actually figured out the tactics and procedure how to use our products correctly, they have very good results compared to their peers that are using other communication systems. And what we found out is that comparing the products only on technical specifications when you're on the test range somewhere in the middle of nowhere, far away from the battlefield, that's one thing. But when you actually go on the battlefield, and that's where we see at least when used correctly, when used the way we kind of provide it, and where we actually have good collaboration with the soldier and we think together on how to use it correctly, they show results where we are able to provide communications and undetected communications in the areas where nobody else is able to do so.
So who is your closest competitor, or at least your considers?
I mean, that really depends where we operate in the market. There are a handful of companies, and it's actually not that big a
Ukrainian
market.
battlefield.
I mean, the main radios that is used on the tactical level in Ukraine right now is those Motorola radios, the police Motorola radios. Yeah.
And now it's a little bit unpleasant question, I would say. In 2023 interview to DOE,
Yes.
it's a Ukrainian IT media, you said that Ukraine's defense sector was quite corrupt. Could you clarify what you meant, and is it still a case? Did it change? Because it's a big concern to many investors, and basically we are doing this podcast to talk to potential investors, those interested in Ukraine defense. So let's give your perspective on that.
The thing is, I don't remember saying that. So, but I'm also bad at remembering what I usually say. But I'll generally answer how I feel right now, right? I don't think that.
That was a question.
Yeah.
How you feel right now?
I think that Ukrainian defense industry is going through a transition. What I want to start from is that we're growing internationally, working with different customers and so on. And I think one fact that I learned is that defense industry in general in the world, not in Ukraine, is one of the most corrupt industries in the world in general because it's closed. It's not public usually. It's all this kind of. Do you think how the business? Why we have all these primes in this industry, right? Those kind of couple companies in each country getting most of the business because they know how the business works. Those people will work. Those people from the government who make decisions will go work for very nice salaries in those companies. So it's in general business where a lot of that is based on very close connections and close communications. When we were starting this company in 2022, we basically, we talked to people who've been in this business in like 90s and 2000s, and a lot of them said like, you cannot work in this environment without.
Don't even try.
Yeah, don't even try. I can proudly say that we haven't been paying anyone so far, not planning to. And I think what changed is that if you can actually prove merit-based that your product is competitive, right now, as a war is ongoing, is that you will have, they'll have to work with you in a way where it's like the life still goes first. And I think, and a good thing about what is happening on the Ukrainian market right now is that you cannot sell. It does happen sometimes, rarely, but it's very hard to sell a shitty product because somebody is trying to earn money. You still need to have a very good product, and then there are all these companies are doing very good products, and somebody knows a guy who knows a guy, and then it's kind of in that way. I think what's also true is that in Ukraine it's becoming more close to how it usually operates, kind of on Western market. It's not here is a case of money or so on. It's more of you get the connections, you get sometimes the political support because this company is more friendly and so on. So it's this kind of game of interconnected, like who knows who and who can support each other, and like does your business growth align with my political agenda, right? It's more becoming more that, which is just generally how this market works in more developed countries, right? It's less cash in cases, more like I can get my political points up because you succeed as a company, because automation on the market, drones on the market, and so on. Like so, it's I think it's definitely changing in a good direction. I cannot say this, it's a fully market-based economy where you can win without ever knowing somebody, because there are specific people making decisions, and you still have monopolized. I think like 80% of the budget in the military is still centralized procurement, which a handful of people making decision on billions of dollars. So that's always going to be not fully merit-based. It's partially going to be based on connections, based on the personal agendas of the people who are making the decisions.
But I also think that in Ukraine we have so many people around who have stakes in war. I mean, many people who were civilians are now using like different drones and radios. Yes, and if anything goes really wrong in really large volumes, let's say like the ministry bought shitty codes for soldiers, it will become immediately available to public. Yeah, and because like everyone is engaged, that's why it's really hard, to make those deals.
Yeah, I think what changed a lot is that what I've been told in 2022 when I was starting is that you cannot work in this market without knowing people or paying people. Right now, I think you can run a fully merit-based company, a market-based company in Ukraine if you make such a decision. You just don't want to participate in that. And I think that by itself also shows that such companies that fully work merit-based, they are also showing themselves as much more efficient and much more successful companies.
Right.
And that kind of then kills the ability of those people who still left over. There's still definitely people in the system that try to game the system and try to provide unfair advantage for personal gain. But what I see and what I kind of from at least from my experience, there are less and less of those people, because many companies don't want to pay anyone. Like it's often,
and also because it is possible to really be successful without that.
As any entrepreneur, you want your business to be good because it's part of that. You want your business to be good because you do good things and you do good products and you provide good service. It also feels nice. It's not only about you earning money. It's like you made something that is valuable. So what the issue is that if you're on the market and there are competitors that you have that doing the same things or actually worse things, that they're getting the contracts, and you're like, okay, like what do I do?
What I'm doing here.
I need to work on the market. But the more companies are winning because they actually have the best products, the more other businesses, okay, you can win if you have the best product, not only if you pay somebody money.
So it's like developing the whole ecosystem just because on those examples, successful examples, that it is possible.
The more there are companies that are succeeding because they have the best products, the best user experience, they know how to work the customers, it supports more companies doing the same and not trying to find different weird passages through certain connections and so on. And I see over the last 3.5 years that there's orders of magnitude more of that than of the previous thing.
Let's hope that we will have even more of those companies in the Ukrainian market. We wish you good luck and success in running your amazing company. And thank you for being with us today, Misha.
My pleasure. It was so good.
Good.
Thank you, Ryan.